Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining our live stream. My name is Iman Bukhari, and I'm one of the members of the Canadian Cultural Mosaic Foundation, an award-winning not-for-profit organization run by committed millennial and Gen Z volunteers who work to improve race relations in Canada by creating cultural and racial understanding through education, technology, and arts. Again, thank you so much for joining us. This is an incredibly exciting event. And just before we begin, I'm actually going to introduce May from Humanology as they are funding this panel discussion.
Hi, everyone. Oh, I hope that sounded okay. I'm May Allen, and I'm the Manager of Community and Events at Humanology. Thank you so much for joining us for this event as part of Empathy Week 2022. For those who don't know, Empathy Week is an annual festival put on by Calgary partner organizations and individuals. We host a variety of events relating to empathy, human connection, and our shared humanity. The festival is held from June 1 to 7, so if you'd like to attend other events going on this week, I'll hopefully be able to share a link at some point, but I definitely don't know how to navigate that. Anyway, before I pass it back to Iman to get the event started, I would like to acknowledge that Empathy Week delivers its programming on the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region. This includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nations and the Stoney Nakoda, which includes the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. Mohkinstsis, which is the original Indigenous name of the city known as Calgary, is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. I personally work and live on the territories of the Coast Salish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Stolo First Nations, and specifically the Coquitlam First Nation. So because we are connecting from all over Turtle Island tonight, I do recommend using the app Native Land to learn the names of the Indigenous territories that you're on, and I invite everyone to comment where you're joining from. Thanks, Iman.
Thank you so much, May. All right, so this project, Race Issues 2. So you might be aware of Race Issues 1, which we released a few years ago, and that was by the artist Iman Al-Kadri. And that project essentially came about us working with several youth across Canada and asking about their daily racial microaggressions that they faced as Bypoc youth across Canada. And from that spurred Race Issues 2. And how did that come about? Essentially, in June 2020, we saw, of course, a rise of racism across Canada as well as across the world during COVID-19. And we had an immense amount of people emailing us, telling us about some of their experiences. And we thought, let's collect that. And so we put a form on our website where hundreds of individuals across Canada spoke about the experiences of racism that they have been dealing with. And we kept that form up on our website for an entire year, so June 2020 to June 2021. And we gathered those stories, and we were able to have 4 amazing artists, who I'm going to introduce very soon, create art through it, create comic art through it. And with that art together, we were able to create a book titled Race Issues 2. COVID-19 edition. And this book is phenomenal, and I'm so incredibly excited. But first, let me introduce the amazing, amazing artists. And the first artist that I'm gonna bring here is Summer. So, hi, Summer.
Hi. It's really great to be here. I'm excited to have a little discussion. I guess I'll just jump in. Ani Nadishna Neben. Hello, my name is Summer. I'm a proud Two-Spirit Anishinaabe from Wisconsin First Nation with also roots from Ganukami First Nation, but I've been born and raised in Toronto here in the East End. Originally, I took the art and design program at George Brown, and then I decided that I was really wanting to go down the path of graphic design. So I went into graphic design for about 3 years at George Brown College, and then here I am, passionate about branding, editorial, of course, illustration, And I'm very deeply inspired by many artists and designers such as Norval Morrisseau, Basquiat, Christy Belcourt, David Carson, and many more. A lot of those people that I take inspo from, I definitely put it within my work. I have my own practice called Niban Designs. I am the one guy type of show. I also work at the Indigenous Curatorial Collective, also known as the ICCA. We are a small arts organization that helps connect Indigenous curators, academics, and you name it, through various ways of connecting. And yeah, I'm very excited to be here and discuss my art.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So the next artist we have here is Jazz. So feel free to introduce yourself. Sorry.
Oh, no, all good. I'm Jazz Groden-Gilchrist. I'm adopted Black artist. I was adopted at like 8 months old from St. Vincent in the Caribbean. So I have sort of this, being Black in Vancouver is tough, being adopted as well into a white family and sort of not really knowing where I stand or really belonging has been sort of a thing I've been unpacking recently. But storytelling and art has always been sort of my way of figuring things out and sort of like bridging difficult topics. So yeah, I'm a comic artist and an illustrator. I did Emily Carr. And yeah, I was really excited to get to do something that was a bit closer to home and a bit less fantasy than what I'm used to. And it was great to have all these really important prompts to get to illustrate. So yeah, I'm really glad that it's come together and we're here to do this talk. So yeah, I'm excited for this.
Thank you so much. The next artist is Lily.
Hi everyone, thank you for the introduction. I'm Lily Huang, and I am a visual artist and designer based in Toronto. I'm also a first-generation Chinese Canadian. My family and I immigrating here to Canada when I was around 6, and I've been living across in the GTA, the Greater Toronto area, and I moved to the downtown Toronto about like 7 or so years ago for school. I attended OCA University for illustration, and I graduated about 2 years ago. And since then, I've been taking on a lot of freelance projects as well as working full time as a designer for a media company in Toronto. And I'm just happy to have this experience and be here live to talk about the book that we created.
Thank you so much. And the final artist that we have here is Sam. Hi, Sam.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can speak a little bit louder. That would be great. Otherwise, it's fine.
Here's my microphone nearby. Okay, hi, I'm Sam or Samina. Also, my artist handle is Dairy Sam. I'm 20 and I live in Vaughan, but I'm gonna be moving to Toronto maybe. And I love all sorts of art. There's not really one medium I stick to, so I love illustration, ceramics, sculpture, fabric arts, anything visual I really love. But I'm also learning to dabble in dancing, cooking, writing, uh, coding. So I love every medium. I love storytelling and I love expressing myself through serial and indirect concepts. Through cartoon or characters or anything uh, unreal. So, but this race issues was more direct for me, which was a challenge, but also in a nice way. Um, it was a more realistic style for me, a more old school and more direct about race issues, which is related to me, of course, because I'm brown and I'm an immigrant. I came here 8 years ago from India and I come from a Muslim family. So uh, we were always struggling with poverty and um, saving up and earning away in Canada, and when I came here, figuring out how the system works, how Western society works, which is very different. I'm also disabled and also queer.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So the first question I actually had was tell us a little bit about yourself, but I know everybody kind of already did. So I'm actually going to sneak in maybe another question. And so when we kind of put a call out to artists, we got a lot of artists. We were incredibly overwhelmed and we're like, we have no idea how we're going to pick because there's so many amazing artists out there. And our board of directors were the ones that selected these four amazing individuals. So what I want to ask is what actually made you want to take part in race issues too? And we'll just go in order in terms of the introduction. So Summer first, then Jazz, Lily, and then Sam. So what made you want to take part?
I think what made me want to take part, I remember seeing the little post, and it really caught my eye compared to all the other posts I've been seeing over the pandemic. A lot of people were putting call out to submissions, but like everyone all said, it kind of hit really close to home, and I felt like it aligned a little bit more with my values and the work that I want to do as an artist and designer. And that's meaningful and with love and care. I want to be able to reach out to people that are in my communities and be able to relate and be vulnerable with each other and really get down into our emotions. But yeah, I definitely felt like this really aligned with what I want to do. And yeah.
Yeah, so like I said, comic artist, I deal with storytelling a lot and a lot of fantasy, speculative fiction. And I think that it's very, very important. Like fiction plays a really important role in our lives, but I do sometimes feel like, oh, I gotta pull the weight and do represent the actual world as it is sometimes. So when I saw this post, it seemed like the perfect calling for that. But also, like I read through the comics, the one from before, and I loved it. But I was also really happy that this time we were doing a collaborative project with like multiple perspectives, and I was really happy to I was like, oh, I want to be part of that. Like, let's bridge a lot of voices to some very important issues.
Yeah, when I first initially saw the call for submissions, I was very interested in this project because you don't typically see something about this topic too often. And I think having this collaborative aspect as well, hearing the different voices from different, artistic communities, I think that is able to offer a branch into people's perspectives and their narratives and put a spotlight on that. So I think that's definitely very important to talk about and to, I guess, feel inspired by. And it did align with my personal values as well because throughout all of my creative work, I think that, visual art and design is able to bridge the barriers of language or perception or culture. So I think just having some sort of creative insight into that is able just to benefit everybody surrounding us.
For me, when I saw this opportunity, I was first of all, it was right in my alley because I love comics. I am always doing comic work, and I felt like when the call came and when we're doing was especially in the midst of COVID, and I feel like it was such an important topic. I'm sure like a lot of people are talking about it, but our perspective, especially of the race part of it, because everyone has, everyone's going through the pandemic and everyone um, has to follow the rules, but a lot of times because of capitalism and race, it hits differently. Some have more privilege, and those who do won't even realize. So it's such a good thing to get out there, especially for archival purposes too. In the future, we can look back in this comic and be like, oh, like this is how it was like in 2022, and maybe in the future, like 3000 2022, like aliens are looking and they're all like, wow, can't believe humans used to be so racist. So it's for archives.
Thank you so much. So the next question that I have, and by the way, audience, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to comment. Otherwise, I do have some questions and maybe that might actually answer your questions. But if you have any other, please do comment because we'd love to hear from you. But I'd like to hear from each of the artists. So there's 10 pieces that each artist made, and I'd like to know which piece in the book, or perhaps more than one, speak to you the most and why. And while we're kind of talking about this, I'll actually show some of the art. So we'll start with Summer first because I have her pieces up here.
Great. I think definitely one of the pieces was one of mine that I did. I called it the Healthcare Indian one. It was a picture. I think it's a little bit further down here, but basically it's a guy just sitting in a seat and then it's his photo. And basically it's kind of just like one nurse whispering to another one, basically being like, oh, like maybe we'll just leave him and he'll just leave, he'll get fed up. I think this is a really good representation of the fact of the distrust that there is in the healthcare system, that there is with Indigenous people, and feeling that we're not heard and we're not trusted when it comes to our own health, when, if anything, we know our own bodies best. And this kind of felt like it hit home the most. And I remember in the beginning of the pandemic, hearing that like vaccines were rolling out, and there was more like immediately it was elders and then it was Indigenous people that were going to get vaccine first. And it was kind of just nerve-wracking. I didn't really think anything of it. I just like mostly was like, oh yeah, we're going to get vaccinated, this is going to end soon. But then really actually thinking, and I could hear like the older people in my family being like, oh, like, are they testing us like guinea pigs? And it was just like, I didn't really think of that perspective until I started hearing it way more in our communities. And that would definitely hit a little bit harder. And another image that I think hit hard that I really loved was one of Jazz's images that he illustrated, was the irony in the freedom rallies with the I Can't Breathe image. And it was just really like a really good image of just showcasing the white fragility that is within our communities that we face every day as POC people. And I find that a lot of people of that nature tend to hook onto a problem like that and just run with it. A lot of us are stripped of our rights and freedoms almost every single day, but we're not storming the White House. But yeah.
There were I looked through them all, and there are 4 that have similar themes, and it's actually a lot of what Summer was talking about. So there's like History by Summer, and then Take a Joke by Lily, Used to It by Sam, and then Irony for me, which is it's just basically all exactly what Summer is saying, which is like the amount of work that BIPOCs do every day just to exist is then just like completely ignored by a lot of white people who, yeah, like exactly what, like this Summer has just said it perfectly. Like these are all images that have examples of how the whites tend to just like overlook everything that we've done and that we're going through to like you're saying, latch onto an issue and just make it the biggest deal, while we're just like, yeah, there are more important things going on. So yeah, I had a thing just like not as bad, but just like a few days ago where I was getting on a bus, and here we've got like, the bus was like 3 different entrances, and there were just like a bunch of white people without masks about to go into the back entrance. So I went into the front, and then they came all the way to the front of the bus and like surrounded me and sat in different places, and this was like, yeah. But the other one is this one, which is about sort of like corporate greed and performative wokeism. Ever since, the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020, it's been sort of hard to tell if somebody, wants you as like an artist or like as a person for who you are and what you do and what you represent, or if they just want to sort of like tick a box and sort of be like, cool, we got a token, so we're good, right? So yeah, I'd say that's the one of mine that sort of hits the most and can really frustrate me because it is very confusing to know how people are measuring your worth. And yeah, it's good to have a place like this where I know people actually care.
So some pieces in the book that has really spoke to me. I have several pieces that I really enjoyed seeing from the three other artists in this panel. But since we're showcasing, I guess like the work I did right now, I'll talk about my favorite piece out of the 10 that I created, which would be the one that is currently in the cover about which is this one on screen right now, because I just really personally enjoy this piece because you don't typically see much Asian representation or even like Asian male representation in a lot of illustrations or media. So I think just having the impact of that work is really important. As well, like talking about some of my other favorite pieces from the other artists, I really love Jazz's illustration style. Like his use of color on composition is really amazing, and it makes for great content to look at. My favorite piece from Jazz's section in the book was about the freedom rallies. I just think the piece really illustrated the concept well, and how the composition kind of like draws your eye towards like the top corner to focus on what they're what they're saying in the speech bubbles. And I think it just illustrated the concept that we're seeing so often in the news recently. And I really also enjoyed Summer's piece on tailored services. Um, it was actually a pretty relatable experience seeing the shop is closed signs due to COVID everywhere around town. I also really enjoyed her art style. Like that hand quality is really personal, and I think it's able to like help me like see what she's trying to say in her piece. And I just really like seeing that hand draw element. And Sam's piece that I really enjoyed that we'll see later on was about how racism is a pandemic. I really like the direction that Sam took for this topic. I think it was relating to mental health, and think she took a different tone of voice to it, making it more uplifting and talking about maybe potentially the future, like in her color and her composition. And yeah, it's just my favorite pieces in the book.
Thank you so much for everyone, like for that. I really love everyone's work as well, which I will talk about. But for me, my personal art, I I love drawing all of them. But there's two that really stood out to me. One was the the Indian or brown person crying because they got a call that um, COVID had killed someone of their family and they were like stuck. Same, like it's similar to theme with the hijabi woman also like missing their family and being alone in Canada because a lot of like brown immigrants are alone, and like all of the family in India and can't even fly there, can't do anything except like video calls, and not even visit each other like from city to city. And another one was the two like people holding hands, and one of them they're like don't uh, they're wearing a hijab but they're like banning hijabs, but then everyone's wearing masks. So the point wasn't about covering up, but the point was about racism, because if you apply the same logic, then even like caps or masks or other kind of covering up should not be allowed. So like how the racism stood now, and a real like illustration kind of targets a different theme around like brown people, or for example Punjabi people are known a lot for being farmers, or um, like like this is more recent than when I was doing the comic, but like a big thing that happened was the Turkish convoy, where originally, they wanted to protest being paid more, but then white people took over and it became this huge racist thing. Instead of like um, it being about the farmers, it became anti-mask rally, which was like, so ironic. Yeah, this one especially like, uh, except masks, like no covering up, we can't recognize you, even though like the person on the right is wearing sunglasses, cap, but because it's Western, they don't realize. Um, and I really love everyone else's art. There's so many like jazz's art to me like speaks very bold, like you feel like you're in the art and you're getting it. Lily's is more of like a serene like I don't know how to put it in words, but like as if it was kind of like a dream kind of art style where it just feels like you've seen this but you've also not seen this, like it's relatable, but except it's such a unique experience that like only East Asian people go through. um like it's like this. And for Summer's art, it's like this grounding experience, like where I feel like it makes me want to like speak up as well, and it like invites other people to think about it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And just, honestly, like as I was just looking through all these images again, it's like I'm of course aware of the stories that came in, but it's like some of these I can even like I remember reading on the news actually an Albertan politician said I think this image was completely related to that, had said, Jason Kenney, by the way, said that South Asians, aren't doing their part. They're the ones who are spreading the virus. So it's just, when you look through these images, it's like you've either experienced as someone or you've even, seen it on the news or something like that. So like some of these images are so like, uh, man, like it's just like you've seen it. You've seen it so common, like senators vacation in Hawaii, but then people are blaming Asians or others. So it's just these images are so incredible, and just thank you so much, artists, for creating them and telling this incredible story. So another question that I have is, so have you seen racism affect your community or others during COVID-19? Perhaps there's examples that are not in this book, or perhaps there are examples in this book, and if so, how? I'd love for individual community examples to be there as well, as I'm sure the audience would like to hear about that as well.
Yes. Definitely there's been many issues, too many to list, but just a few off the top of my head is definitely like mental health that I feel like all different communities face. The sense of isolation, literal and mental states that we've all been in, resurfacing some kind of historical traumas, the blood memory, and I feel like often the government didn't really know what to do, in the sense of having to take care of millions of people and giving resources out and what was the right resource. And it was really just a sense of disconnection that we all had. I know in Indigenous communities, a lot of our traditions all stem from gathering, and we all had to isolate and stay home. So a lot of our traditions were kept inside, and that's what was done in the past, where we couldn't like talk about anything. We had to, I think it was not until the late 1990s that like we were allowed to actually like celebrate like our culture. And then it was kind of brought back again, where we all had to be inside and like hush hush, and not everybody had accessibility to internet or devices. So even if there was online programmings, not everybody could access it through stable internet connection or even having like a good phone at all. But I think there's a multitude of issues that happened during this time and still are. And it's just a matter of everyone having to come together and do their part.
So I think, like, sort of I tried to illustrate during baggage, and it's not necessarily unique to Black community. Like some are saying, all communities, especially BIPOC, really suffer from having so much going on sort of behind the scenes that any event hits us harder than people with lots of privilege. So there's been loads of suffering during COVID. Again, especially in the States, not necessarily trusting the medical system has been a thing, but I think the biggest thing has really just been seeing what happened in summer 2020 with Black Lives Matter, and sort of like I don't know, I felt, along with all the sorrow, there was like some amount of hope that maybe this would be the thing that really stuck. And I guess over the pandemic, it's been kind of disheartening to see where it hasn't. Some things, it's hard to see where it hasn't. It's really good to see the things where there has been actual change, but I guess it's just expecting more. And then now, like Sam mentioned, seeing the freedom Conde and just seeing what other people have been able to get away from. It's just like having such a big event earlier in pandemic and then seeing all these other things happen, and just sort of seeing how other people are treated, the whites versus how we are treated, is just a continual reminder of how little society values us. So I think it's mostly really been that, at least for me. So yeah, it's been tough. Oh, wait, I will say one thing, because at least early in pandemic, people, because people wanted to social distance, so it was really cool. People didn't always expect me to move out of the way. Sometimes people would move out, like when walking down the street. Sometimes the whites would move for me. So that was something.
Such a cool experience, Jazz. So I think some ways that I've personally seen racism affect the community I'm in or others during COVID is, well, I'm East Asian, particularly Chinese, and I've definitely noticed an uptake in how Asian people are treated. You can see this a lot in the news all over Canada or even in the States after COVID or even during COVID. I just felt like during the entire pandemic, there was a lot of blame and a lot of hatred towards Asian people about the pandemic, like where it came from. Didn't help that the previous politicians called it the Chinese virus. I think just overall, that amount of hate has been amplified and made a lot more visible. Not sure if it's more visible because more people are aware of it or if it's like a newsworthy thing to say to broadcast in the news. But I'm not seeing any like way for this to decrease the level of like stigmatism in our societies right now. Especially since I live in Toronto, we're a very multicultural community, and even when I'm walking around in Chinatown, in downtown Toronto, you can see a lot of Asian communities, but you always have like this image of like hate crimes towards Asian people in the back of your head. It's like, oh, like it seems nice and peaceful now, but I know like maybe a week ago, someone committed a hate crime towards Asians here. So it felt like it definitely feels some sort of divide, even when we're meant to be walking somewhere that's as like a safe representation of our culture.
For me, I've seen definitely COVID like affect me in my community a lot, especially racism. Um, like with just COVID itself, like my family dying in India because of it, and over there they had like less because they have so many people, they have less resources for stuff like oxygen mask and stuff. So, um, like it wasn't even that they didn't have. It was just like getting and like money was a big thing. And uh, like I think comedy, can just not be in Canada too, which a lot of people don't think about. But even in Canada, like a lot of my community, like for example, like brown places like Mississauga or Brampton, it was definitely like more masked, more distance. Like even in the rage of pandemic, like a lot of anti-maskers used like you go to Canada or like not Canada, you go to Toronto downtown, and then you notice like so many like anti-masker or like I would get news on Instagram like, oh, anti-mask protests. They go from this street to this street, but like in Brampton and a lot there was like less of that. Like definitely, you won't find any anti-maskers. Like a lot of yeah, like just especially a lot of Islamophobic agendas. Like a lot of the same time, the Syrian and Israel like um, war was going on, and I feel like because of COVID, it got like less prioritized. But like for example, even now Ukraine like is becoming more of a big deal like than Syria ever was. Like government, it's on the radio, but for Syria, like no one cares. It's just a Middle East country. So um not that like that doesn't deserve it. Like I think everything deserves, but one saying one should have more attention or not just because it's a Muslim country is obviously where the racism lies. And uh, yeah, that's all I can think of right now, but I'm sure as the layers go on, there's more and more.
Thank you so much, artists, and totally agree with you, Sam. We definitely see the media and society give more relevance and love towards certain communities as compared to others. And I know some of the art pieces are about that as well. So thank you so much, artists. And again, folks who are watching right now is the time to get your questions in. I see there's one here, but I'm sure we can have more. So if you have any questions, now is the time to please get them in. And before I just put the questions up here as I see them coming here, I really just want to say that this book is meant to provide stories that happened during COVID-19, even though it's still a thing and we're all acting like it's not. But it's meant to provide, the Canadian context for policymakers, advocates, as well as the public, so we can begin resolving the harms that are caused by these intersecting oppressions that continue on within our nation. So this book, and I believe it was Sam that mentioned, is like a relic. It's meant to be showing what's happening in 2022 or 21 or 2020, and hopefully we can use this as a valuable learning opportunity to do so much more, because Canada really relies on foundationally racist systems to address social challenges that keep arising. So we have to identify them and address these harms in order for racialized people who live in Canada to live a life of dignity. And everyone deserves a life filled with dignity. So I have some questions coming in here. And thanks everyone for the comments as well. These images are incredible, and I'm so excited that this book is being launched, and I will give details about that as well. So we have this one comment here asking, what was your biggest challenge creating these images? And feel free to jump in at this point in time, or if you don't have a comment, that's totally fine too. But if anybody does have a comment, or all of you do, then feel free to jump in.
I guess I'll go first. I think one of the biggest challenges was I'm very multiverse in being creative, and it was hard just picking a style. I tend to be very loose lined, and I wanted to be able to portray like what was going on and do the storytelling that I felt like was fit for this comic. So I think definitely picking the style and color palette, as minuscule as that sounds, the colors was definitely one of my biggest issues.
A big issue for me, or challenge is the word we will use, is, yeah, I'm used to doing like longer comics and having like more pictures to do an image. Like I feel like I'm a comic artist first, illustrator second. So some of them was sort of like, okay, how do I do this in one shot? And then one of them I just broke the rules and made basically a comic. So that, but specifically one that was tough for me is the invisible yet so visible, because the prompt for that had to do with some pretty bad violence from a demographic that I'm not completely part of. And I didn't, while there might have been an instinct to actually display the physical violence itself, I felt it was inappropriate for me to show that. Because you know how like sometimes people will do things and they're like, hey, this is to make you feel good, but then they just show you like violence towards your people. And it's like, if it doesn't come from someone from that community, then it's who is it really for, right? So it was a matter. So it took me a while to try to figure out how to communicate the importance and the pain of that, but without sort of like trying not to make it. I don't know if I succeeded. Hopefully, I did, but trying not to make it like triggering in the sense of violence. Just so yeah, just like responsibility of representing demographics that aren't entirely yours was something that I needed to be really careful about.
I think my biggest challenge in making these images was, I guess, choosing the style, like Summer mentioned, as well as simplifying the composition and image to kind of make sense when you're looking at it as front on. Um, because I am, in my previous illustration work, I'm used to more, I guess, stylized and I guess like fantasy sort of illustrations. And I feel like this was definitely like something that's very drawn back to reality because it's experiences that we have all faced in our communities. So trying to find a way to, I guess, communicate those experiences well in an art style was definitely a little tricky.
Sorry, I was turning the light on. For me, my biggest challenge was, I mean, I had a lot of challenges, so I can't really choose the biggest. The biggest was having all the challenges, sort of. One was like the time crunch because there were 10 like illustrations to do. So, if it was one thing, I could set a theme, I could set a style, but because it was 10 and gonna be in the same book, I kind of had to keep it similar, like consistent in style, coloring. Like I tend to experiment a lot. Like, so if I start a new one, I'll forget like, oh, what was my like line width? And did I use 3 point, 2 point? Forgetting that like, what kind of colors do what kind of shading? Because even just like a different style of shading can make it look so different. And I think that was my biggest challenge.
But you all did a phenomenal job. Like as somebody who can't draw anything at all, yeah, you can totally tell what the topic is about or what's being discussed. And it was done on purpose to just be one image rather than a few different comics, because it's meant to be shared like a meme, just one image, and a person sees it and they can relate right away. So you all did an excellent job. So thank you for that. We have one comment here about which BIPOC artists should we be following other than you all. And also, if this is a great time to mention your own, if you have a website or an Instagram or whatever it is that folks can follow you on, or a store or anything. So if you have any recommendation for BIPOC artists to follow, that would be great.
I mean, I always just plug people from my like idols and my friends. So Pearl Lowe's, an animator who's incredible and who I hope to meet someday. Karen Shangguan is an amazing illustrator and comic artist who just had her book out, Quiet Thoughts. Rita Faye is probably the coolest person I know and does incredible concept art. And then Chase Gray. So, I was working on this mural with Chase Gray, who's just like the coolest person. And also Cole Pauls does incredible comic art too. I can like find their Instagram pages and like put them in the comment section.
I'm really trying to figure out all the artists that I really love in my head. I'm trying to remember their acts. One artist that really sticks out top of my head is this Two-Spirit artist named Mo.Butterfly. They do amazing, hyper like realistic drawings of just like queerness, and it's just so beautiful. Like every time I see one of their like their pieces, I always am so inspired every time I see something. And my Instagram is Nibin Designs, Niibin Designs. I'll put it in the little comments too.
I mean, one East Asian artist I can recommend. They just came to mind because they actually recently emailed me a couple of days ago asking about like a t-shirt commission. But they're known as Cut Sleeve. They are a local Toronto queer East Asian musician group, and their music is great. And I also did the album art for them. So please, I think they deserve a follow or at least a checkout. As for my socials, I can be found on Instagram as well as social media at Hualili. Hualili is spelled Huallilee, and that same spelling is in my website as well.
For my own handle, it's I only have Instagram. Um, uh, so if like even if you don't have it, you can still see my work. It's at dairy.sam. So dairy like milk, DAIRY .sam. And some artists that I like, I guess think of top like brown artists. One is Mo Pramanik. Another artist that I really like is T. Kundu, and another one is oh my, I forget handles, or like I forget. I think they're Punjabi, and no, so they're like, or like their name is Pri, but I don't know. I forgot their artist handles. I really like them as well. Um, I guess me pronouncing doesn't really do it like justice. I if like there's like I can't really put it in the comments, but hopefully like I'll figure it out a way how to send it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I can grab everyone's information too. I know the audience is just asking really hard questions right now to think on the spot. Like like I don't even know my own Instagram handle, so forget about other folks. Like I can't even remember anything these days. So we actually have two other questions, well, three, but two of them are actually very similar. So I'll just put both of them on, and then it's kind of a very similar question that you can probably answer. So this one says, curious about your perspective. What can white people do to end racism? Thank you for your work. This is a very, very intense question, but perhaps you can give a comment or two. And this one is also very similar. I also can't draw. Artists, your work is amazing. What are your thoughts on how we can use art to combat racism? Do you think it's possible?
I think, well, first of all, those are very heavy questions, and we can talk about that for days. But I think one of the things primarily that came off the top of my head is amplifying the BIPOC people in your life, giving them a platform. Solidarity is not just listening, acting, but many, many things. And it's a constant thing. It's not just a one and done type thing. You need to constantly be acting upon that, and communicating, listening, amplifying. Yeah, I'm just going to keep rambling, but yeah, definitely amplifying the people that in your life.
Fully agree with that. And then I also think it's important to have conversations with people who approach or cross the line when BIPOC are absent. Like if we've heard, like if we're thinking about like sexism, we all know like locker room talk, right? Like you have to be able to stand up to other people who think that it's okay and actually have conversations with them about this. And I think that's really important because you're not going to get any brownie points for that. Those are areas when we're not present, and it's still just as important to stand up.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Summer and Jazz. Intense topic. I don't think we can talk about it right now in our limited time. And I don't think that it will get the justice that it deserves for this topic. But I don't think white people in particular should be, I guess, the voice to end racism. It's definitely something that is very ingrained in our, I guess, diverse societies. And, you know, I think it's just not a one-stop solution for, I guess, one particular group of people to, I guess, end all racism. Um, Definitely amplifying the work of BIPOC people. I think we need to, I guess, like see other people's perspectives and just truly understand them. I think that would just be one step forward in potentially, I guess, like understanding each other and seeing where all this hatred comes from. Because it's not just one group of people versus another. Like it's a mixed soup of racism, I guess. Like if that's how you want to say it. I've even seen POC on POC hate. Like it's not like one collective group, but it's definitely a very, very tricky issue to resolve as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like that was the same thing that I was gonna say is racism is different than like just white supremacism because that has its own history. But racism, it looks like many kinds. It can be just like city to city racism. It could be like state, like in India. There's so many states. You have Punjab, you have Gujarat, you have Uttar Pradesh, you have all these things, and like South Indians, like and North Indians and South Indians are so different. Like they're racist towards each other, and it can even look like colorism. Like even if you're the same race, like if you're darker or lighter, like so. and then racism, of course, can look in a global or systematic way, where in Western place we live now, or even um, so I guess my advice would be obviously study up. If it doesn't affect, if it affects you, you kind of know from personal experience. But if it doesn't affect you, you can learn from other people, from like books or movies or documentaries. Uh, and also like learn about how history sort of kept paving its way, like how British colonization worked, how like now like it's still ongoing because US, Canada and Saudi Arabia, like all these countries kind of like do war on each other, like it's mostly for oil or gas or money, and then they kind of like wreck all these countries up, like especially like for mines or for this or for that, like India has been wrecked, Africa has been wrecked, Middle Eastern countries have been like even though they used to be like so rich. So like figuring out how Western places, how you have so much around you, like where you got the privilege from, can make you realize like is the first step. And obviously the next step would be to start decolonizing. And like even in our personal language, like if your parents just say something like even like oh like for example, even like brown parents like would say racist stuff against like East Asian, because even culture, like even like Muslim versus Judaism versus Christianity. And like the first step, like for me, what do I do is like I have Jewish friends, and we're like, yeah, we know our parents hate each other because of different religion, but we love each other because there's so much in common with our religions. So like one thing is like, instead of looking at different stuff as bad, looking at like different stuff as not as bad. um like even your headset can be a start, before you start like helping other people. So even recognizing your own stigmas, because everyone has some, even I have, everyone has some. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And just for the audience, these folks are amazing artists, BIPOC artists, not specialists in race relations. Just want to throw that out as well. But thank you so much for all your comments as well. And really, like, the fight against racism and discrimination in general needs to be part of your everyday life, essentially. So you need to begin by interrogating your own identity and questioning the impact of our worldview. So what is my personal worldview? What is my background, and how does that all come together? And then you can do a deep dive into the origins of racism and how it looks worldwide, because it's very different in this land as compared to other places as well. And also what whiteness means, because that has a direct relation to what racism is and how it's ingrained in our present everyday life. So I would recommend that as well. I know the question wasn't asked for me personally, but wanted to throw that out as well. And we just have actually one last final question here. I do see some other ones, but we are actually just hitting the 1 hour mark, and I want to respect their time. But if you have any specific questions, I can always email them and reply back as well. But the last question is actually what I was going to touch up on anyway, and it's how do we order a copy? So right now, we are actually going to be adding it on Amazon.ca. It was actually ready to go, but we had to make a final tweak, and then Amazon decided to do a review, and it takes up to 72 hours. I know this is a virtual book launch, but it's going to take 72 hours for it to be up, but it will be up on CanadianCMF.com, or you can go to Amazon.ca and just search up Race Issues 2, and we will be promoting it a lot as well once it's up and ready to go. And again, we are a volunteer-led group, so our purpose isn't to make any money off it. In fact, we'll be very straightforward. We're going to make $2 per copy, even though the price is a little bit more, and we are hoping to give that back to the artists, actually. So any copy you get, a little bit goes back to the artists. Amazon was actually the cheapest option that we had, so that we were able to do it through that way. We did want to support something local, but it just ended up being very expensive in that sense. So this is why we decided to go with Amazon. So thank you so much to the artists. And we have this comment here also saying, thank you so much, Summer, Jazz, Lily, and Sam for the incredible work that you put into this comic. And I totally agree. Thank you so much. When this project started, I had no idea what it was going to look like. I just knew that we picked 4 amazing artists and I didn't know what was going to happen next. And you all brought your amazing art, your specialty, and also your own identities into it. And that's what made it so beautiful. And I love how unique and amazing every one of you are in terms of your art, in terms of your personality and who you are. And I want to thank you so much for bringing that to our organization through this book, because we as an organization, we have a lot of volunteers and we've learned so much as well. So I actually have this one copy. This is of course not for sale because it's just the copy that I got as a test kind of thing, and it's awesome. It's a little square. It has all the images. Sorry, I'm really bad at doing this. It has all the images in here, and we have, you know, curation and poetry as well, and artists. I will be sending you a copy as soon as Amazon officially adds it once again to you as well. But everyone, this is Race Issues. It is so awesome. It is so amazing. I'm really excited. I know some schools have contacted us already about having this book in their classroom because they want to have these discussions. So we will have it up on our website, canadiancmf.com, in 72 hours. And I will, if anybody has any emails, please, or questions, email us and we will get back to you regarding when it's up or the link or any of that. And if you have any questions for the artists, additional ones, I'm happy to email them. I will also include within all our social media accounts, like all their Instagram accounts or their websites and all that. And also on our website, if you check the team page, we have their bios and their photos and link to their portfolios as well already. So if you want to get access to that right away, we have that. And lastly, I just want to thank all of the artists so much for your time. I know it's exhausting, but it is such important work. And I am so happy that we were able to work with you all to do this. So thank you. And yeah, that's it. I don't know if the artists have anything else to say. If you do, now is a great time. Otherwise, we can end the broadcast as well, as it's been an hour.
I don't have anything else other than I was really happy to be a part of this project and also have my art with some really cool artists. And yeah.
Yeah, as well. Just like it's so cool to follow you on Instagram now and see the things that you're making. I'm very, very impressed. I'm very lucky that we got chosen for this. Thanks so much.
Yes, thank you so much to Iman and everyone at the CCMF team. Like all your help and support was truly amazing, and I'm really happy with how the book is finally printed and ready to publish.
Yeah, thank you to everyone. Thank you to all the artists. Like it was it was so nice having like not only my art but everyone's like sort of to like bounce off each other as well. To Iman for like like choosing us, and other like what's it called, CMF. I'm not good with acronyms. Uh, but yeah, the organization. Thank you for it, and I'm excited to get like my copy and to read it like virtually. I mean, virtually is good, but then having it physically is something else, So I'm excited for that. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye. Bye, everyone.